Bonjour tout le monde. Hello everyone. This is Benjamin Wells. I'm doing my presentation on the limits of machine translation for language learners. Now, I've seen Mary's presentation on machine translation, and I've seen David's presentation on Google Translate, and we are going to cover some of the same ground. But I think that I have a special, or a unique rather, take on it. Maybe something that we haven't discussed yet. So I hope I keep your attention. Just to give you a little bit of background, my experience with Google Translate is that I'd first started learning French back around 2010, right when Google Translate sort of first became a big thing. And for me, learning French was done in part with the help of Google Translate. So it, I think, did some things to the way that I look at French. I think it did some things to the way that I write French, and I want to discuss those a little bit in detail. So my presentation starts with a basic observation. And that basic observation is that I think that reliance on the software results in the user modifying the word order of the start text to render the intended meaning into the best form for the translation software to recognize. So what we're really dealing with is, and this was the revelation for me, we're dealing with an additional intralingual translation that renders the intended start text to a better form. In other words, the user reorders, amplifies, and reduces the phrasing of the idea to be conveyed so that the target text remains structurally and grammatically correct without any faux amis or false friends or other structural problems. So what does that mean? The next observation that I made was that the user may avoid the use of idiomatic phrases or regional structures to further circumvent problems in phrase-based translation algorithms. What does that mean? This is a more of a well-known limitation. I believe David went into detail with his example of the clam bake, and I have another detail as well. But those are the two main observations, and this is something I've been thinking about since back in 2010 when I really first started learning French. So let's dive into it. Let's an example of the first observation. So here we have, and this is again Google Translate, we have three different ways to say we eat turkey because Thanksgiving is coming up, right? So I have we eat of the turkey, we eat turkey, and we eat some turkey. Now, the first one we would really never say in English. The second one we would say, and the third one we would say. And if you notice, Google Translate has nous mangeons de la dinde for the first and third, but the second one is kind of, it's weird. We eat the turkey, and it's missing that critical part of the phrase that makes it French, right? So instead of saying we eat turkey or we eat some turkey, I would write, for example, we eat of the turkey, which we would never say in English. So my supposition is that this is a form of intralingual translation that's sort of new. It's something that we've really never seen before up until now. And it makes for some sort of unusual grammatical structures on the front end, or the start side of it. So what evidence do I have? Is there anything Is there anything scholarly that we can look at to see where this came from or what this is? I did find this guy Genzel, who writes for Google, and he says that one of the major problems of the modern statistical machine translation relates to its difficulties in producing the correct word order on the target side of the translation, where the source side is not the same as the target side. That's pretty spot on from what we're doing. I found his work pretty informative, and it explains a lot. If you have time, go ahead and check him out. You can find him on Google. Um, the second talking point, or the second observation, is a lot like what David had with the clam bake. This is example 2, and I just put on here, just for example, she's the bee's knees. Now what I'm saying is that I would take something like she's the bee's knees, and I would know that this would not translate into French. I know that this wouldn't work. So I would change it from she's the bee's knees to she's really awesome, or she's super cool, or something that I knew for a fact, or I knew with a great degree of certainty, would translate without causing these problems. Okay? And this is very similar to what other people had talked about, and this is a really well-known problem, and trust me, Google's working on it. It's just the point is that it's so hard for them to get all of the different regional dialects and all of the different, and it's different from language to language, right? It's different from English to Spanish than it would be from English to French or to anything else. So I did some research on this one as well, and I found that there had been a shift from the word-based model to a phrase-based model to try to help, okay, in the application of the translation software. And this was a little bit newer research. So this applies to Google Translate more or less today, which, and Google Translate has evolved since 2010 when I first started using it. It's gotten a lot better. But what it says here is that the shift is recognized as an attempt to remediate the problems with equivalence and the recognition and proper translation of idioms. So the point here is that they're working on it, they know about it, and it's a problem that I don't see them really being able to fully solve. So again, what this means is that the user is utilizing intralingual translation to translate from the actual start text to another form of the start text that they otherwise would never have used, or something that is essentially nonsensical in modern English language. So it's something new. It's a different form of English that we've never seen before, and and it's even more evident with things like I use in my outline the Cajun French phrase "tonnerre mes chiens," which means "may thunder strike me down." But Google Translate would translate that into "thunder my dogs." So "tonnerre mes chiens," it would translate it directly, word for word. It's a word-based literal translation. So instead, I would just say, in English, I would say, "I swear to God," or something like that. I would never use "thunder my dogs." And there's a lot of different examples for this. So it works both ways, is what I'm saying. Not only does it work from English to French, but French to English, obviously. So there are some pros and cons to this, to using this, to this intralingual translation, rather. The first thing is that you can minimize structural errors. You can reduce problems with gender and number. A lot of times, when I'm using Google Translate, which I admittedly do a lot, I may forget the gender of, a word, or I may forget uh, leave off an S or something like that with a chord, and it helps with those problems. And the other thing is, frankly, it's a lot easier than typing all those accents because, all those alt commands and all that stuff. It's a lot easier for me to write the words into Google Translate and then just copy and paste those funny accents, and then I don't have to. It's a time saver for me, and that's what it's become essentially. Um, Cons are pretty evident, uh, to me at least. The If you don't know what you're doing, it's a problem, right? So there's a potential for you to use improperly unknown structures, and the software can get it wrong. They can get the gender and number wrong, and I've had that happen many times to me, where I put something into Google Translate and it just goofs, it's not perfect. And next, and this is my theory, is that obviously reliance or over reliance could stunt the learner's growth. Now, I haven't seen any evidence to that. I haven't seen any studies to that effect, but it's just, I guess, a conclusion that I've come to. Um, so, to wrap it up, what I'm saying is that users can avoid the use of idiomatic phrases. They can reorder the words into structural equivalents. They can avoid outdated or outmoded phrases in order to produce a better text in the target language. And, if that's what you want to do. If you're trying to get around doing a bunch of work, I don't think it's going to work anyway. And although the user encounters limitations in the translation software, there are ways to circumvent these limitations. And you can produce a text that's closer to the target language than can be achieved through just the use of software alone. And again, this is a new form, in my opinion, of intralingual translation. And of course, it comes with a catch. The kicker is that it really does take, and this is, 5+ years of experience using Google Translate at this point, it really does take a knowledge of both languages to be able to really do it right, to properly render the source into the target without losing its purpose. No matter what means you use, whether you use Google Translate or you use dictionaries or whatever it is, if you don't know the rules of grammar and if you don't know the rules of the structure, you're going to have problems no matter what. And it's going to be evident. Like David said, he's going to know when his students are using it. So, has it changed the way that I learn the language? I think it has. Has it stunted my ability to speak and read and write French? I'm not sure. I think that I learned it anyway because I wanted to and because I love it. And I think that in my case, it's been a tool. It's been a helpful tool. I haven't used it as a crutch, but not very much at least. But I use it as a tool, and I think that it's helped me overall. I think that it's taken some of the stress off of my learning French, and for that I'm grateful. Um, so thank you for listening to my rant. I hope it wasn't too long or too short. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and put them in the comments, and that'll be it. Thank you for your time.